好吃，超好吃的。这种巧克力加卡士达，当时
Does it matter for you guys if it's dark or light?
I think it is better.
The dark? Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me? Actually, for the first part of this talk, in addition to let you get a sense about the importance of historical legacy to urban development, the other thing is to highlight the importance of some process or mechanism, especially in Japanese era, is the modernization and westernization process. And the urban planning system and transportation system are the two most important things that you have to know. And because that two things is also highly related to later urbanization process and the development of urban development in Taiwan. In the early 20th centuries, especially in Japanese era, the new railroad was built and used, and most of the city are located in the node or the major part of the railroad. And for this, the railroad not only to connect north to south, but also because Taiwan's resources were all located in the mountain areas. So from the mountain area, they use the road to ship it to the major city located on the railroad, and then send it to southern part, is to Kaohsiung for export, or to the northern part for Keelung port to export to outside Taiwan. So railroad in late 19th century and early 19th century is a very important infrastructure to build up Taiwan's urban system then. And actually, the second part will be the major part of today's presentation. And so I named it a city in modern time after World War II. And I already mentioned that started from 1945, the KMT government retreated from mainland China to Taiwan, become a new regime. And Taiwan's urbanization and city development is also highly related to KMT regime's policy, especially economic policy. And so for this, we have to mention two things. One is the land reform that used by KMT government, and the other is the U.S. aid. How does U.S. aid help to build up Taiwan's economic miracle? So for this period, we will talk about started from the 1945 to early 1970s. During this time, we have experienced two economic periods. One we called it import substitution period. The other we called it export-oriented industrialization. But we have to talk about the first part. When KMT regime came over to Taiwan, and because they also received quite a lot of assets and resources, and even though the infrastructure from Japanese era, so quite a lot of the national enterprises nowadays took over from Japanese era. But in addition to that, in addition to that, because it's a foreign regime, if I say that, what I mean is that KMT regime at that time, when they came to Taiwan, the first thing they met was how they rule this land, especially how they control the society here. So there are two things. One is the ruling class, which means the elite in Taiwan, how they control the elite. And the other is how they control the general public. So for the elite, which means the upper class part, and also, they use it because at that time, the ruling class or the elite class, their assets is mainly because they are landlords. They control the land. So if they can release their assets, and then they will kind of supersede those kind of the ruling class. And so the KMT used the land reform, which means that let the small tenants, they can rent or even own the small piece of land for themselves. So which means that they liberalize the farmers, and then use the farmers to, because they farm for themselves, and then they not only can buy the heart for the general people, also for the general public, when they become the landlord by themselves, they will doing the agricultural activity, and then they will get the surplus. So for those things, especially for the landlord, they relieve their land, but whenever their land will take over, what will they use for their capital? When they sell the land to the government or to the farmers, they will own some capital. So what will the capital do? Which means that then they will transfer those push those class to use that kind of capital to invest in the industrial sector or manufacturing sector. So that is one thing. And the other thing is that they use the surplus from agricultural sectors also to generate the profit and to import quite a lot of the manufacturing equipment from abroad to nurture or to promote the industrial activity at that time. And in addition to that, they also use the U.S. aid, the help from the American government to build up quite a lot of infrastructure for the industrial development. So during that time, we called it import substitution period for Taiwan's economic development. So at that time, I put some of the pictures here, such as this picture. This person is a very important. We call it a founding father for Taiwan's industrial development, Li Guoding, Mr. Li Guoding. And it's the breakthrough for Kaohsiung export processing ROM. And also, at that time, quite a lot of Taiwan's economic or city developments were consulted from foreign committee. So this is the American Economic Council. In the picture, welcome the Economic Council from the United States. And they are representative for United Nations, actually. So during that time, the urban planning, especially, for example, for Taipei's urban planning at that time, was in charge by our Jingjianhui, Council for Jingji Economic Development, something like that. And actually, the body behind it is this kind of foreign committee. So, which means that during the 60s, especially, Taiwan's city development or city planning are governed or are advised, I shouldn't say governed, are advised by foreign or international committees or councils. So which is also related to economic development. And this building, we call it Tianmu Baiwu. If you go to Tianmu is located in the northern part of Taipei. This kind of White House, we call it White House. At that time, yes, not the White House of the United States, but it's painted with a white paint. Tianmu, it's also a historical building. And that time, it's lived by the American advisors. Quite a lot of American advisors or military forces live in this kind of housing. So you still will see some of the elements then. So, yes.
I have some questions about land record.
Yes.
After the farmer
Yes.
own the land,
Yeah.
are they allowed to sell it or are they allowed to lease the farm to other people who work on it? Then they go to the city to look for a job. If they lost their job, is it they come back to farm? Are they allowed to do that?
Yeah, sure. But we will. This question will, related to the second part I'm going to talk about. But they do. They were allowed to do that. But during that time, they only can rent a small piece of land. That is only enough for them to survive. Okay. Because before they didn't own the land. They kind of rent the land. They are tenants. But government let them lease land or own the land. They can farm by themselves. But we can go to another part. Going to whenever the industrial activity become more prosperous, and then also in that period, the government also try to suppress the price of agricultural products. So which means that even though they can make their own living, but if they have a surplus, they would like to use that to earn money, right? But because the agricultural price were quite low, which means that there were no incentive for the farmers to work hard or to farm a larger piece of land, because they wouldn't make money from agricultural activities. So that has become a mechanism to push those farmers, whenever they can earn their living, they are not and then there were no incentive for them to enlarge their farming activities. So their labor force will be released to the city and to the industrial sectors. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. So then we will talk about, if we look at this picture, which means that started from 51 to 2000. These are the total population of Taiwan. And these are the percentage of urban population. So in 1951, you will see here, the urban population is only around less than 30%. But, the percentage increased dramatically since the 1950s. And then, it stabilized in mid-80. So which means that during this period, KMT took over Taiwan in 1945. So started from the 50s to 85. This period is Taiwan's rapid industrialization period, and also it's the most rapid period of urbanization. So remember the time period. And for this time period, we called it Taiwan's miracle, because Taiwan achieved quite a lot of achievement in economic development. And from the 50s to 60s, at this period, I just called it as a import substitution period. But at that time, that wouldn't, gain the surplus for Taiwan. Taiwan's economic miracle was achieved after Taiwan government take another economic policy, which means it's the export-oriented economic policy. And for this kind of things is to make a product for export, for international trade. And some of the sites that you will see is, okay, I already go to the, Does anybody recognize this kind of landscape? These four pictures are important, are very important Taiwan's industrial sites. 六堵工业区 located in the from Taipei to Keelung, along the Keelung River. 六堵工业区 was the first industrial park in Taiwan. So it was funded in 1960 something. I couldn't remember. Yes, past Xizhi, nearby Xizhi. Because if you take a railroad to Keelung, you will Taipei Nangang, Taipei Songsan Nangang, and then Xizhi. So it's 七堵、五堵、六堵、七堵、八堵, and Keelung. So which means that because 六堵 is just, so if we don't have a picture here, but in the northern part, because Keelung port is the most important port in Taiwan and also in the northern part. So 六堵工业区 located in the middle of the Keelung basin. And another thing is this one, is export processing zone in Kaohsiung, also in Taichung. We have several export processing zone. And another thing is the heavy industries, also in Kaohsiung, that pollute Kaohsiung city quite a lot. And the first industrial scenery is the Science Park, located in Hsinchu. Now we also have the second industrial science park in Tainan, and the third is in Taichung. So look at those kind of, landscape, which are the landscape for economic development. So what I just mentioned, that during this period, the urbanization process is highly related to Taiwan's industrialization process. And where factory located are where people located, because people have to look for jobs in the factory or in the plants to make for a living. So they are pushed from the rural area. I bet Nora Chiang mentioned this last week, right? Because talk about Taiwan's population development, definitely people have to talk about the industrialization process. And push people away from the rural area to city area is, that they can find a job in the factory, in the city areas. So for those kind of, rapid increase of urbanization process, those people were located to cities. And cities are where they can find the places to build the factories. And the products that they made can export to the international or global markets. So which means that this city should be located in the major transportation node. So railroad is the most important place. And also highway, the new highway. So we have two highway, the Zhongshan 高速公路 and Formosa superhighway. So those two superhighway also are highly related to Taiwan's economic development and urban development. But we can talk it later. Just give you some general idea about the quick urbanization process and the allocation of urban system. And as I just mentioned, that we have to, deal with that, with how to know how does that related to economic development and transportation development. So this is also just to give you some general picture about, those urban population were allocated to some major metropolitan areas and sub-metropolitan areas. So many of the cities that you can name this, such as Taipei metropolitan area, Kaohsiung, Taichung, and then Taoyuan, Zhongli, Hsinchu, Jiayi, Tainan, etc. So you will see that, because I just mentioned to you that started from mid-80s, our urbanization process stabilized. So you will see. But most of the people come to the northern part of Taiwan. So northern part of Taiwan were the most, have been most densely populated area in Taipei, in Taiwan. So if you look at, the distribution, if you look at the distribution, you will see, in addition to the railroad and highway, 3 major cities become the magnetic for the urban development. And they are connected to the rest of the world with the seaport and the airport. So the Taiwan's international airport is located in Taoyuan, right? So these are the most important nodes that connect the Taiwan to the rest of the world in terms of the export products. I already mentioned this. And so if we look at Liudu is located here because Taipei has long been the economic center for Taiwan, the northern part. So started from the end of the Japanese era, they tried to industrialize Taiwan, and that was enhanced by KMT regime. So the northern part of Taiwan, the export goes through from Keelung Port. So the Liudu Industrial Park is the indicator for the 60 industrial development. And for the 60 to 70, the KMT government tried to build up export processing zone to produce such as the electronic durables, such as electronic durables, such as radio, such as what's that at that time? TV. So many of the they built up 3 export processing zones, 2 in Kaohsiung, 1 in Taichung. That is in the 70s, and in that was in late 60 and early 70. And during 1970s, there are 2 times of oil crisis. One is in 1972. The other is in 1978. In addition to oil crisis, because at that time, Taiwan was highly rely on export economy. So when there were oil crisis, the economic will be highly influenced, such as 2007 we have a financial tsunami. So that financial crisis influenced the scale of influence is quite large. And during 70s, the same. Taiwan's economy was greatly heated. And in addition to that, in 1970, I cannot remember the exact time, it was around 72, Taiwan was no longer the member of United Nations. So Taiwan was kind of abandoned by the international relations anyway. So KMT government at that time, they recognized they have to use Taiwan as their base. So how the government, Taiwan government, encounter for the economic, especially the oil crisis, and also the political heat in the international era, they use a 10 construction project. Taiwan government used a 10 construction project. One is to build such as our Taoyuan airport. Taoyuan airport was built then. And then they also built the Taichung port. And they tried to electronicize railroad to speed up the railroad, and etc. So 10 construction projects were used to consolidate the infrastructure for Taiwan for further development. That is one thing. And the other thing is that because before, started from 50 to early 70s, most of the manufacturing products that were produced in Taiwan are low value added one. So Taiwan government think that we had to advance our economic structure. So in early 80, the first science park, Hsinchu Science Park, were built in Hsinchu near the Taoyuan airport, because for the high-tech product it's small and light, so they can use the air transportation to ship it to the international market. So this is what I mentioned. So build the science park is also an indication for Taiwan's economic development went into an era of globalization. I already mentioned this. Okay. So from that time, you will see, because the science park were built in 1981, and started from that time, Taiwan gained a lot of economic surplus. So it started. There are two things that you should know about Taiwan's economic development. One is that at that time, we have to restructure our economic structure from a low value added or labor intensive industry into a high value added or high tech industry. So the government used the high tech industry as a mechanism to advance the economic structure, which means that during that time, our government still think that manufacturing sector are the heart for our economic development. And that is one thing. And from that time, you will see, Taiwan's urban development still, governed by three major cities: Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung. And that kind of pattern has been enforced. And the second thing that I have to mention is that in addition to we have to restructure, advance economic development, also we got a lot of capital surplus. So started from the mid-80s, Taiwan become a capital export economy or country. Not only as before we export manufactured product. Started from mid-80s, Taiwan also become an economy or country that have the ability to export capital, to do direct foreign investments. So during that time, many of the Taiwanese businessmen go to the Southeast Asia, or went to Southeast Asia or mainland China to invest. So that also started from a new era, not just we call it globalization globally, but internally we are going through a process, economic or industrial restructuring process. Give just a short remark is that started from 50s to the last decade of last century, Taiwan's urbanization pattern are highly related to where the industrial parks were built or constructed. So if you compare with where people located, where people reside, it is highly related where the industrial parks located. So I use different colors to label, different time periods of industrial parks. This is just give you an impression about the pattern. But if you got a chance to visit each part of Taiwan, and then you will get a more sense, and maybe you can see try to kind of verify whether there are industrial parks located. You can search for it. I know those polluted area is not attractive at all, but those are the reasons for the development of the city during that time. And started from the mid-80s, I just mentioned that Taiwan was undergoing economic restructuring. We can see from this picture, because from that time, the urbanization process stabilized. And also we can see the economic structure has been undergoing restructure. The tertiary industry become more. Oh no, this is not clear to you. Let me check with this. This is the percentage of urban population, and the darker part is the proportion of the secondary, which means it's the industrial sector, and the lighter part, this is the tertiary sectors, and this is the primary sectors. So you will see, started from the mid-80s, the tertiary industry become more important than manufacturing sectors for Taiwan's economic development. So you will see this is also go with the stabilization of the urbanization. So if you look at the map for different county, you will see, such as in the northern part, the blue one is the higher proportion of manufacturing activity. Most are located, in the northern part, and it became blue. And such as for the city center, for example, for Taipei and Taipei City and Taipei County, the tertiary industry supersede the manufacturing activity or manufacturing industry as the major economic base for city, which means that people in those cities are no longer rely on manufacturing job for living. They become doing tertiary jobs there, which will also influence the cityscape and city life for the urban residents. But still, Taiwan's economic development are still highly related to manufacturing. But we are now rely on high-tech industry. So in addition to Hsinchu, Tainan, Taichung Park, you will see in Hsinchu they have a different branch parks for the science park. They have a Hsinchu base, Zhunan base, Longtan, Taoyuan base. So it's become a central and satellite cluster for industrial, for science park. And for Taichung, it's the same. Not only the Taichung Science Park, we also have another branch park in Taichung, which is located in Huwei. And Tainan is the same. In addition to Tainan, Kaohsiung, Luzhu is the satellite park for it. So which means that we began use the science park as the major production sites for Taiwan's high-tech products. And as you know, started from the 1980s, because Hsinchu Park was built in 81, but the success of that park were recognized started from the 1985. Started from the mid-80s, people started recognize the success of Taiwan Science Park. It's because during that time, quite a lot of high-tech brand went back to Taiwan. It's pretty similar to what happened right now in mainland China. They have a lot of Chinese-related or Chinese-born high-tech labor force going back to Shanghai, to Beijing, Zhongguanchun, to build up their science park. And during 80s in Taiwan, it's pretty similar. Quite a lot of engineers came back from Silicon Valley to Hsinchu and built the connection between Hsinchu and Silicon Valley. And actually, 20 years later, this kind of connection now become Silicon Valley, Hsinchu, and Shanghai, because quite a lot of high-tech industry, they invested in Shanghai and also in Suzhou Science Park. So now it's a triangle linkages between among these three areas for global high-tech landscape. Yes.
What part of each park has a length of bamboo?
You mean the Kaohsiung, Luzhu?
You see over the length of this park and the age of them and part of them has a bamboo before.
Hsinchu, okay. Sorry. I know. These are all related to Hsinchu Science Park, and this is Luzhu. Okay, I know for Luzhu because in the ancient time, many of the satellites were built. The materials that they build the buildings, all the infrastructure are highly related to bamboo, because bamboo are the major construction materials during the ancient time. And also bamboo is the major energy. If you want to produce energy, you also use bamboo. Such as now in Taiwan, if you go to Zhusan, you will see they now try to use bamboo to produce some new products, such as 倍长炭. They can kind of absorb the bad smell. And also, if you nowadays they try to innovate some kind of T-shirt, use the bamboo product, high-tech products. So bamboo is a very important materials for Taiwan. So many of the places are named in bamboo, and it's a very important plant. So next time when you have a class on ecology, something related to Taro plant, you can ask the professors how important bamboo is to Taiwan's ecology and also to Taiwan's development. Okay. That's great. You can ask questions whenever you catch up something. I can name it for you or try to explain it to you. Okay. So this is just to let you, to remind you again about the relationship between the urbanization process and also the allocation to different places in the island. So I'd better not let you look at that. This is trying to indicate that the urban pattern of the city now is become not just as we named it Taipei, Taoyuan something, but actually if we look at the city, it's become a city region, a large metropolitan area, not just a city. So for Taipei metropolitan area, does anybody know how many people we have, around this large metropolitan area? How large? My question is, do you have idea how large Taiwan city is or are? How large the city?
5, 6 million.
That's for Taipei. Right. That's for Taipei. How about for Kaohsiung metropolitan area, including Kaohsiung City, Kaohsiung County? And how about Taichung? If roughly you know how many people are living in the metropolitan area, such as for Tokyo, larger Tokyo metropolitan area, how many people are living there? Do you have any sense of it? 10 million. For Tokyo is 10 million. And for the inner city, because in Tokyo, people highly rely on MRT for their transportation. So the rhythm of the city, Tokyo City is just like a end dome. Every entrance for the MRT, you will see quite a lot of people come out and get in. So it's like an ant if you look from the sky. But that is different from Taipei. Taipei, in the past 10 years, people start relying on MRT, but most of people still rely on motorbike and cars. So for Taichung and Kaohsiung, it's still the same. In Kaohsiung, even though we have MRT right now, but not many people use it, right? They are still rely on motorcycle. Anyway, so this is just give you some idea about the size of the metropolitan area. So for this part, we have around this should be include Taipei Kilo metropolitan area and also Taoyuan, Zhongli, and to Hsinchu. So including this Taipei Kilo major metropolitan area, Taoyuan, Zhongli, Hsinchu, these are the major metropolitan area for northern part of Taiwan. So in total, it's also around 10 万, which means 10 million. So it's pretty similar to larger Tokyo metropolitan area. So these are the number of the population in 2003. And for these three major metropolitan area, definitely this included some sub-metro areas. And nowadays, for the city or for the metropolitan development, is highly related to the new transportation system, which are the highway. So such as you have to look at two major highway and also their connection route to the entrance of the highway. That will lead the city structure, lead the development of the urban structures. And one more thing is, started from a few years ago, we have a high-speed rail. So people are thinking about how high-speed rail will restructure or will influence the western corridor of Taiwan. How does that will influence Taiwan's urbanization pattern or pattern of urban development? How do you think? Because the railroad station of high-speed rail are usually away from the major city center. So which means that there are new nodes, city node, the railroad node. So will that influence, the development of old city? With that, such as in Taipei. In Taipei railroad station, we call it 五铁共构. We have a high-speed rail. We have Tai railroad. We have a MRT. We have a transfer station. What else? There are only 4. Anyway, in Taipei, they are all converged together at the current station of the Taipei Railroad Station. But in Taichung, it's different. In Taichung, the railroad station is in the city center. But for Gaotie, it's located in Wuzhi, nearby the 高速公路, the superhighway. In Kaohsiung, it's in Zhuoying. It is in Kaohsiung County, not in city. So the pattern are different. Kaohsiung City. Okay. Sorry. But it's not in the very city center. The pattern are different. So what my question is, will that change the city pattern or city structure? How does that influence the urban development? Definitely, there are different patterns from Taipei with Taichung and Kaohsiung. But we can also ask why Taipei, they are converged together, and why Taichung and Kaohsiung, they use another route, and what does that influence to the land price, to the residents or citizens' daily life? Have you ever, use a high-speed rail? How about international student?
I have been using high-speed rail, but what I want to say, they cannot, like high-speed rail, it has some specifications that they cannot build it easily, like the normal rail. It has some sort of straight road. So if it's like they have to design the road before everything, they have to know where it's going, and it cannot have a small curvature or something. It has to be really, really small curvature in its total road. Like
it has to be very straight.
Very straight.
Yes.
Yeah, it cannot have
because
sudden. Yeah, it's really fast.
So if
major thing, and why they are not combined in the center of the city.
Okay.
And actually, it has to be far away from the normal
city center, right?
No, the normal trains. It cannot be combined with normal trains. The rails, because it has like some special kind of rails also.
Okay.
Use different systems to control it.
Sure. If that's the character for the different transportation mode, have their characteristics and different characteristics. But whenever we impose a new transportation mode and a transportation route, that will influence the urban or city development. So there will be two questions. One is, if we look at, let me give you another picture. This one is not clear. We can go back. If we look at Taiwan's transportation system at different periods, how does that relate to original physical environment? That is one thing that I did not mention, in the class. If we look at the picture, because there are landform here, and then we start thinking from now back. If you are the engineer or planner, you want to plan the route of high-speed rail, and then go back to 100 years ago. If you want to build a railroad, and come back to 60 years, if you want to build the first highway, and then if you want to build the second highway, where will that route located? And then, if you know how that transportation mode and transportation route have been located, you will know Taiwan's urbanization pattern and urban development pattern. So,
I think we consider it faster mode, because I think Taiwan's government had a plan to make more urban, make the country more developed and to put more buildings for civils. So the plan of building the MRT
MRT.
and Gaoshou, it had a